This was one of those just perfect spring days that you get in Connecticut here and there, when it's like, man, we've got to be outside today doing something. And of course, if we have a choice, the something is usually, if not street riding, dirt riding for sure. But we couldn't round up the regular crew because Mike is racing tomorrow somewhere, I think it might be in New York for J-Day. So in DRZ was working. He's got that big giant project he's working on, so he wasn't available until afternoon. I thought I was going to just ride by myself, which is okay, but it's definitely not as fun as riding with somebody else. But DRZ came through and texted me and said, hey man, I can make it like at 12:30, and I was like, that's just great. So it's just me and DRZ, which, to be honest with you, suits me really, really well, because when DRZ rides with just me, he is great about just keeping a pace that's pretty close to a pace I can keep. And so I'm able to ride along in view of him more and just get more enjoyment out of it. Because a lot of the fun is watching the guy in front of you and what he's doing, and what kind of saves he makes, or just what's going on with him and his bike. That to me is a lot of the enjoyment, as well as what's going on underneath me with my bike. But it is a lot of fun to watch the guy in front of you. So when it's just me and him, he keeps a pace much, much slower and closer to a pace I can keep him in sight. Where when he rides with the fast guys, because he is able to go fast, he rides fast to stay up with them, and I tend not to have anybody in the shot because they're long gone. I mean, it's like 50 feet out and they're disappeared, and I'm like just plodding along. So this is really pretty cool that they, when it's just me and DRZ. Mike does the same thing to an extent, but he just naturally likes to roll fast. I mean, when you're young and you're fast, it's, imagine, very boring to plod along just to, keep me in sight. So anyway, this is a video with DRZ and me riding, and we're going our usual path, actually, our loop, I should call it. But we were both amazed how little we remember of leading it without Mike. Mike just always leads us, and we put it on autopilot to the point where we're just riding and not even paying attention, or I'll speak for myself especially, not even paying attention on where are we going and how are we getting there. It's more like, hey, look in front of you and try not to crash. So today, DRZ is like, well, let's try and figure it out on our own, because we tried this, he and I, maybe 6 months ago, I don't remember exactly, and we got lost. We couldn't figure it out. And we're like, man, we've been on these trails probably 100 times. That might be a little overstated, but not by much. And we couldn't find our way. We're like, what the heck? We ended up in the sand pits. We ended up left, right, everywhere but where we wanted to go. So today we're like, hey, let's try and figure this out without, Mike leading the way. And so off we went. Now, DRZ's on the 250 again, because his 450 obviously is not done because it had more issues than we originally heard. I mean, he broke a valve from what I understand, and they, tore up some stuff in the motor itself, so he's got to get parts, serious work done. We were hopeful it was going to be something really simple and easy, like whatever, it could be simple and easy, but no such luck. Now, in fairness to the bike, he has 300 and something hours on it and has done basically nothing to it other than change the oil here and there, or the air filter. So maybe it's a lesson learned that, you know what, you need to pay more attention to the maintenance of these bikes than we do. Also, he rides his on the street. It's his street bike. And when you have a dirt bike geared for the dirt and built for the dirt, and you're riding 75, 80 miles an hour on the highway, I don't know if that has a factor or not, but that's what he does. I mean, it's his daily rider when he's going to ride a bike. Although he has a KLR as well. but he tends to use his 450. I think it's because if he sees a trail along the way, he's able to cut left or right and jump on it and go and explore it, which for him and the other guys is like their thing. I mean, they'll come back and say, oh man, we found some new trails out in the middle of wherever, Salem, East Line, wherever, someplace that we don't usually go. And then they drag all of us out to explore it. So that's part of the fun for sure. So here we go. We're going to ride along. We rode a long time. I don't know if I'll put it all up. I'll probably edit it out some, but in the meantime, you can enjoy it. It was a beautiful day, like I said, and we're riding along. So that's pretty cool. So this video is pretty cool if you take into account what's going on. I was amazed how muddy and wet it was. I just have been in Texas so much and it's been dry that it shocked me. I think this is the deepest the water has been in these crossings since I've been riding out here. There was places, man, it was like 3 feet deep. There was one time I went across, I don't know, a whole stream or whatever, where my bike started to bog down because I think it was sucking a little bit of water in, which is not good, but weird. And if you know, I've said it a million times, I'm afraid of water because that's my worst nightmare, that I drown the bike and then can't get it out of the woods, even though I've been with DRZ and Mike and they've been able to get it out of the woods. So I guess it's just a stupid fear on my part. Alright, so as you know, if you've been watching my videos at all, I've decided to add a story during the video so that it kind of helps your mind, I guess, play along with the video. The videos are cool to watch, but to be honest with you, unless there's something really crazy going on, I'm sure it can be boring. So try to add a little bit of the history of the bar when I owned it, because we did interact with so many legendary, famous people because of it, the concerts, etc. Matter of fact, whenever I watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there has not been 1 year where one of the acts didn't play our club. So it's always pretty cool to reflect on any of those shows, from B.B. King to I don't know who's been in recently, Sam and Dave, etc., etc. This is going to be a shorter story, and just because I'm tired and I'm lazy, but I do want to throw one on here. We had only had the bar, no kidding, maybe 6 weeks or thereabouts. We had done, started to do the shows. That was what we were going to be known for. That was the thing we wanted to do. We didn't want to just be a bar where you came and you danced and had a bunch of drinks or whatever, or chased chicks. That was there, but that wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to, actually, I modeled it when I was in college. There was 2 really, really cool bars that I enjoyed. One was called the Shaboo up in Willimantic. I don't know if you've been there, if you've never heard of it. It's been gone for quite a while. But if you're of my age, or relatively within 10 years of me, you probably went there, because they were a club that had everybody. I saw bands like Joe Cocker and Todd Rundgren in there. The Police played there. What else did I see? I saw Muddy Waters in there, Jane Cotton. I mean, it was just a really, really cool venue, and booked oversized acts in it. And it was, I'm telling you, from the stage to the back wall was no joke, maybe 30, 40 feet. It was wider than it was long, but I mean, you were in there and they packed us in, like I told you last time, like we did. And I kind of modeled it after that, because I always thought, what a cool place that you're seeing. Oh, did I mention like the Police played in there? I mean, it was just crazy. You would go in there and they would just have up-and-coming acts, and or big-time acts. Like when I saw Joe Cocker in there, he was a monster star, or even Todd Rundgren. Those guys were big deals, but they would use it as a tune-up, I guess, before they went on their tour. I don't know how these guys had their, their connections to get the shows, but they did. The Ramones were in there a bunch of times. It was just a really, really cool place because you were seeing monster talent literally, 20 feet from you, which is a rarity, as you know. I mean, if you go see Joe Cocker, you're expecting to be in a 5,000, 10,000 seat arena. Not, hey, grab me a bud, and by the way, did you hear what he just played? Place, so
think
it
I'm
was,
good.
We modeled it after that.
I think I got it. Oh, you want
And
to throw
the
that
other one was Toad's
pretty
Place
soft,
in New
huh?
Haven, which is still going. They've been at it, gosh, they must be 30, 40 years. But anyway, that was the other place that I would go to and see shows. And I was like, man, if I owned a bar, that's the kind of bar I wanted to own. Where being a fan of music, loving to play music, but being more a fan of the music, I wanted to see performers play. I didn't want to just go and hear the DJ spin some records. That has a place. I'm just saying it wasn't for me. It just wasn't. I'd rather see Los Lobos live than see Los Lobos, sing a song on a record. These records be outdated. Let's be hipper, CD or MP3. So anyway, that was what we were trying to model. But when we first started the bar, we didn't really know how to book bands. I mean, there's no manual for that stuff. So we got in touch. Actually, my DJ Ross, who unfortunately has just passed away in a car wreck last year, knew a guy named Doug Witt, who actually had some experience booking bands. So early on, we would let Doug pretty much run the door or book shows. And that's how it started. As time went on and I learned what was going on, I took that over because, to be honest with you, his tastes and my tastes weren't exactly the same. And I like booking bands, cutting the deal, and so I took that over.
They tried to
he
do
went
it
off
with
to
a
work for
sedan.
a big concert company called Intervisions,
Kinda
which
crazy.
will come up in some
But I
of these
guess
stories along the way. So, anyway, he calls me and says, hey, there's a reggae band out of Washington, D.C. called Bad Brains. Now, if you never heard of Bad Brains, do yourself a favor and look them up, Google them for a minute, because it turns out they're a really, really big deal even to this day. So I was like, yeah, man, I love reggae. Let's book it. Well, as you can imagine, he didn't tell me the whole story. So anyway, we booked the band, and the day of the show, they show up. I hear sound check, and they're doing, regular rub-a-dub, reggae, nothing crazy. And they're very good. They're great players. I think it was only a 3-piece, maybe 4, but it might have just been a 3-piece. So it was just, guitar, bass, drums. That was it. And they had the dreadlocks. They had the whole thing where they looked like a reggae band. So I was like, cool, that's great. So I used to go home after sound check. I had my son was born around then, Amos, and so I didn't hang around at the bar. I would come back for the show, to run that part of it. But these sound checks would be at like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, long before the doors opened. So they were great. Met them, just kind of typical, pot smoking reggae guys. So they were mellow, everything was cool, so great. I go home, I come back, and the show is selling pretty good. It's not sold out, but it's pretty good. So I'm like, wow, this should be a really fun thing. The only negative, to be honest with you, with booking reggae bands is that if you own the bar, is they don't drink. They just smoke spliffs and drink orange juice at the most. So your bar sales are horrible if you're doing reggae. I wonder if that's why people don't book a lot of reggae, to be honest with you. I still booked it, I liked it, but it definitely, you knew you weren't going to sell a lot of beer or a lot of mixed drinks or whatever. You knew it was going to be a lot of people going outside every 20 minutes and firing up their doobies and then coming back for the show. That whole Rastafari thing, So anyway, we booked the show, and like I said, the doors open, and it sold pretty good. I don't remember it being sold out, but it was crowded. It wasn't wall to wall. It wasn't like crazy. And they're playing, and they're doing, their reggae thing, and people are skanking. I think that's what they call it when you dance with reggae. That kind of swing your arms thing. And they're dancing around, and everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, the lead singer turns around. We had a big black curtain with the name of the bar behind it as a backdrop. He turns around and rips the backdrop off, and they break out into some of the most aggressive punk music you've ever heard. Go listen to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? They were just playing this sweet reggae, and now they're just thrashing it. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, oh man, what is going on? And I'm looking, and all of a sudden the guitar player is so frenetic. He takes his guitar and he slams it through the ceiling of the stage. His guitar went through the ceiling of the stage. It was a low ceiling, like a drop ceiling. I'm like, oh my man, what is going on? And they proceeded to play 40 minutes of non-stop, just ripping it punk. And I'm not talking like Ramones punk, I'm talking like just hardcore thrash stuff. And I didn't know what to do. I just kind of stood there, and they were just tearing everything up. They were smashing stuff and just jumping off the stage, and it was crazy. Well, anyway, the show ends, and I'm a little shell-shocked, and I'm like, Whit. I always called him Whit. I don't know why I didn't call him Doug very often. He and I, it was like mutual détente. We weren't close, but, he wanted to book bands, I wanted to have bands, so that's the relationship. We weren't like super close. I didn't dislike him. It's just like we didn't, you don't get along or don't see eye to eye with people, but you don't dislike him. It was more like that, and I look at him and I go, what did you book? He goes, I told you who they were. And I'm like, wait a minute. You told me they were a reggae band. He goes, well, they are. I go, yeah, for the first 30 to 40 minutes. I go, what do you call that last 40 minutes? He goes, oh, well, they are a little diverse. That was his word, diverse. I was like, dude, that's beyond diverse. They were flipping insane. I said they tore the stage apart. They knocked out like 5 of the panels. They tore down the backdrop. They just were incredibly violent on stage. Get a chance, look at some of their videos. I'm sure it comes across because
not like a pro.
That's who these guys were. Anyway, that was the first caught off guard show. There's many of those where you think you're getting X and all of a sudden you're getting Y. And Y isn't always what you want nor what you think it's going to be.
Yeah. Michael Jarvis.
But as it turns out, they did decent numbers. They played their set. A lot of the people were taken back like me because we sold it as a reggae show. So it's like people coming to hear reggae, they were like, oh, this is really good. And then just getting their heads chopped off and handed to them for the next 40 minutes. I'm telling you, it was like half the crowd was gone after 2 songs of the hardcore. The rest were kind of just standing there going bewildered. What in the world are we watching? As it turns out, since then, or from that time forward, they have become super, influential. They're like one of the biggest, young black rock bands, punk bands that ever played. And people really adored them. You probably could book them now and do good numbers. But at that time, it was just like shellacking us. I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, that's a short story just to kind of keep you entertained here for a little bit. I hope you enjoy the video. There's some interesting parts at the end. You're going to see a car out in the woods. That's pretty crazy. And all in all, it was a really good day, man. I thank DRZ for having the patience to ride and enjoy it with me. And thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks. Take care.